Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Jarrett Hess, taking on all the roles of game master, solo player, author, and narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One role can decide the fate of many things. Welcome back to Episode 6 of Shadow of the Demon. In our previous episode, the party arrives at the Palace of Southmarch, the new capital to the Kingdom of Craewen. They ride up the winding, icy streets to the kingdom's palace atop a large hill in the center of Southmarch, and witness the Craewan military in full mobilization. At the palace, they are met by the palace steward, a man named Paron, who, with the authority and backing of the crown, gives them a suite of connected rooms on the corner of the third floor to rest, recover, and resupply before their next leg of their journey. Furthermore, Paron pays them from the royal treasury 100 platinum pieces, the promised half of their agreed-upon price, to perform this mission for king and country. The servant staff sees to the party's needs and brings in a royal spread of food and drink, while Raena makes plans and Dosaken, Garvis, and Kendrock eat and drink and gamble long into the night. Renchant continues training Tatyana. We find that she is indeed talented in magic, and she casts her first spells that night under Renchant's tutelage. In one of these, she detects the magical wards at work in the palace defenses. But to her horror, she sees that those defenses wink out one by one as a roiling cloud of darkness rises from the streets below. We return to the party as the palace is beset by some dark force. And now onto Episode 6 of Shadow of the Demon. Tatyana felt the bubble of fear swell inside of her as the dark clouds boiled to the level of the third-story windows, blocking out the light of the stars beyond. Her adrenaline spiked, and goose flesh puckered along her arms and neck as she struggled to continue her magical chant with Renchant. Renchant's voice was strident as it chanted, rising and falling, his staff raised, one arm gesticulating the ritual of warding. His brown eyes locked with hers. She could feel his strength, his love for her, his concern for her, and yes, even a trickle of fear for her in his eyes and voice. Yet he did not break his spell, but his eyes seemed to say, "You can do this. You've got this. I won't let you down." And she loved him all the more for it. All right, combat begins. I rolled initiative inside the virtual tabletop I'm using, which is Fantasy Grounds, to help run the combat. Does Renchant's shout wake Kendrock? He is shouting, so I will add a +2. But Kendrock is drunk, so -1, and it's late, so -1, so I guess that takes things back to even odds. On a 50-50 chance, I rolled a 9 and got a yes. I rolled 4 times, trying to beat a difficulty class of 10 to see if Kendrock was blackout drunk, using the drinking rules that I'm using. He's not, he's just buzzed and has advantage on charisma skill checks. Go Kendrock. Does he knock over the candelabra on his table? Somewhat likely, and I get a yes. Kendrock heard the alarm and surged to his feet, his lizard eyes snapping open. He knocked over his chair and nearly stumbled on his own feet as he whipped out his massive two-handed sword in his powerful arms. The white and blue scales along his body glittered in the torchlight. His blade smashed into the candelabra at his table, spilling the hot wax and guttering out the flames as candles tumbled across the surface.
"What's the problem?"
The Dragonborn slurred, and he blinked red-rimmed eyes and took a stumbling step backward. Renchant didn't answer. His eyes were still locked on to Tatyana's, and his magical chanting rose in crescendo. So Renchant got the lowest initiative. Does Dosaken hear his shout? I will say it is somewhat unlikely this turn, given that Dosaken was drunk and asleep in his bed and is behind another door. All right, combat round 1 begins. How I will do this combat, I will give a brief blow-by-blow narration of events, followed by a brief behind-the-screen explanation from a rules perspective. Kendrock blinked at the rising clouds, and in 2 strides he moved over to Tatyana and Renchant, placing himself in front of them. His sword held at the ready for any threat that might come from the direction of the windows. Tatyana, adrenaline fueling her, finished her spell a few seconds before Renchant, and she felt a thrum of defensive magic settle around her. An invisible force that shimmered into place about her body, moving with her. She did it. Her 3rd successful casting of the night. Renchant gave her a nod as he continued to finish his chant. She darted over to her weapons belt and snatched up her blade. So Kendrock held his attack as a reaction to hit anything coming towards them, and Tatyana got to go first because she got the highest initiative. So she finished her spell, Mage Armor, and her armor class becomes a 15, and she moved over to the fireplace and snatched up her weapons. Let's ask a question of the Oracle. Does the attack, the thing that is sent at them, go through the window? On a 50-50 chance, I get a 1. A no and. Tatyana gripped her scimitar in trembling arms, backing from the window. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught motion. She spun as a large creature made of dripping shadow and smoke crawled multi-limbed and too large from the chimney to scuttle spider-like onto the ceiling. She let out a gurgled cry as a shadowy tentacle whipped down, battering through her magical defenses and snaking around her neck. It yanked her into the air towards it. She gasped, and with her left hand pulled weakly at the tentacle that wrapped about her throat. With her right, she managed somehow to keep hold of her blade. Ooh, so very, very sneaky. The thing came through the chimney. The thing attacked Tatyana, and it has advantage against smaller creatures. It got an 18 total, and she took 6 hits and has 20 remaining. I'm actually just using a modified NPC stat block for her until I make up a better final character. A muffled smash and tinkle of glass cut through the night as the window shattered and fell in a scintillating cloud of reflected firelight onto the carpet. And another multi-limbed monstrosity clambered through the window towards them and also onto the ceiling. With a roar, Kendrock swung at it, and his two-handed blade cut into the thing's bulbous body a long ribbon of pain that resulted in black hissing blood spraying down onto him like dripping black fog. Yet still the thing scuttled forward. So the second thing comes through the window, and Kendrock's reaction goes off. He got an attack of 13 against an armor class of 13 for 12 hit points. Now I know we are mid-round, but let us take a break before proceeding and take a step back to reveal my previous Oracle results that have brought us to this point. Here's what I had come up with before. So from the harm art oracle result from the previous episode, to me that means there is an attack on the palace wards, harming the art of magic, and that there was also an attack on Renchant himself or other magic users in the palace. The break trials and the puzzle cube tile on the MAG marks adventure glyphs, and the oracle result of a duel occurring likely means that the demon that has been trapped within the puzzle box is trying to break free of his magical prison. This causes an attack that shatters the palace's magical wards, and the earlier MAG tiles, a claw, a web, a jellyfish, etc., means the demon sent some sort of dangerous creature or creatures, some lesser entities from the chaos realm that the demon can summon and control. So, how does this develop? I'll say in its attempt, the demon hits Zelfaria, the female elf mage that is in possession of the puzzle box, with a magical backlash which momentarily stuns the mage. In the process of its mental attack, the demon links minds with Zelfaria and finds out the party's role in bringing Zelfaria the puzzle box. While it hates Zelfaria with a passion, it is not strong enough to confront her directly. Instead, it sends its will out to summon forth lesser demonic entities to try and destroy the foes who gave Zelfaria its prison. Is there a court magician currently in the palace? I think that is somewhat likely, but on a 3, I get a no. But I do think said court magician can surely sense the wards being infiltrated, or burst asunder, and will try to return to the palace as soon as possible. That makes me wonder, is Zelfaria the court mage? That might be interesting. I will give it a 50-50 chance. On a roll of a 5, I get a no, but the court mage has had dealings with Zelfaria. Okay, well, are they friends? I think that's a 50-50 chance, and on a 2, I get a no. So this begs a question. What is Zelfaria doing behind the scenes with this puzzle box anyway? We don't really know. But to me, it feels like so much power in the hands of one person is not a good idea. Unless, of course, that one person was Renchant himself. I'm sure he would agree with that. Speaking of Renchant, can Renchant sense the magical wards? I'll say yes, that he would have cast Detect Magic and learned that there were wards in place. Is he awake now at midnight? I'll say it's likely that Renchant and Tatyana were awake and talking, training still. And on a roll of an 8, I get a yes. Is his Detect Magic ritual spell running right now when the demonic forces attack? I'll say that is unlikely, since he probably would have cast it earlier in the day, just to probe the wards. And on a 6, I get a no, but. So no, but Tatyana manages to cast it, as he's been teaching it to her in their late night study session. Nice, that'll be cool. That'll be awesome, thematically. What are these entities? Creatures bleeding shadow into the night climb spider-like from a nearby building on multi-segmented legs up one side of the palace wall, using the cloud as visual cover. The attacking creatures get a 21 stealth. They rolled with advantage. Do the guards spot them? The guards get a total of 15 and 11 on perception, and that is a no. So the things are atop the palace, and they're drawn towards the source of magic, in this case, towards Renchant and Tatyana, and they begin their approach. Has the demon broken free completely? A 50-50 chance, and on a 4, I get a no. Okay, now that you know what those oracle rolls hath wrought from the previous episode, let's jump back to the narrative. Kendrock tried to track the thing that moved on the ceiling, but it moved too quickly. It was the size of a bear and dropped in a pile of segmented legs and venom-dripping mandibles that clamped about his middle. Its fangs scraped along his breastplate before sinking into his neck. Then, as Kendrock in vain tried to engage it, the creature resolved to mist and shadows sinking through both Kendrock and the floor.
What witchery is this?
He slurred as he felt the fire and ice of poison coursing through his veins. He sank to one knee, wavering, one hand going down to the floor to stabilize himself. Poison. So he took 26 damage from poison, and 4 from the bite. And now he has only 6 hit points left. The thing also has an ability to do ethereal jaunt, where it moves hidden on the ethereal plane until its next turn, making it very difficult to engage and destroy. Raena, the room over, was exhaling a long breath of relaxing meditation when the warning from Renchant pierced through her mind. Hearing the warning shout, her eyes snapped open. She leapt to her feet, gathering her things and darting out into the hallway. She saw the others under attack. She knocked an arrow. "Garvis! Dosaken, arise into arms!" So she used both actions to move and get her stuff. More dark spiders poured through the windows, squeezing through most unnaturally. Renchant kept chanting his spell. Another smaller spider leapt on top of Tatyana from the window, sinking its fangs into her thigh as the tentacle still gripped her about her neck. She gurgled a scream, and it took all of Renchant's concentration to maintain his grasp on his spell. A pile of legs and web and fangs leaped atop Kendrock, and he fell backwards with a ragged cry, his eyes rolling up into his head, sword falling onto the carpeted floor. So, poor Kendrock got hit with a 19 and took 6 hits and is now dying. Great. Tatyana got hit and has taken 14 hits total now. Renchant, still chanting, saw the closest of the smaller, dark, shadowy spiders shimmer through his defenses and clamp onto his leg. He tried to kick it off in vain and felt a fire rise in his calf, where the fangs penetrated through his leggings under his mage robes. He knew he was going to get swarmed by a myriad of smaller spider-like creatures that neared his position. He ached to lash out and help his beloved, but he could do nothing to help her if he was stopped now. He finished his casting, and he disappeared. So, Renchant is trying to get one spell off before he's swarmed. The paladin wasn't as much of a tank, apparently, as I had hoped. Renchant knows his only chance to save Tatyana is to be patient. He casts invisibility. Renchant, his spell now active, kicked off the spider around his calf and stepped around the others. His leg would soon begin to swell from the bite. He could feel the poison coursing through him, but he was able to still move, to act. He saw through a shimmering haze the real world about him, the light of lantern, torch, candles, and fireplace, not reaching his eyes in quite the same way as it normally would. He saw his beloved Tatyana struggling, spinning in a slow circle, her dark eyes bulging as the tentacle wrapped about her neck. Her scimitar was still held in her hand. She yet lived, and was fighting off the bite and the tentacle. A good sign. He quickly reached into his robes and pulled out a glass vial, unstopping it and dribbling its contents into Kendrock's mouth. The healing elixir worked almost immediately, and Kendrock's eyes flicked open. So Kendrock gets 10 hit points back from Renchant's healing potion and regains consciousness, though he is still prone. Let us ask, do the guards hear the alarm now? I think it is likely that some sort of alarm was raised, as there were some guards that were just posted down the hallway earlier. And on a likely, I get a 10, a yes and. Across multiple locales throughout the palace grounds, alarm bells began to toll, reverberating through the floor. Renchant prayed the palace guards would arrive soon, but until they did, he would go down fighting. At least one palace guard will arrive in 1d6 rounds. I rolled a 4, so 4 rounds. That's pretty fast in seconds per round's time, but pretty slow in combat time when death is on the line. Does Garvis awaken this turn? I think that is likely with Raena's warning, and on a roll of a 7, I get a yes. Garvis grabbed his spear and dashed out into the hallway, yanking the door open to the main room. He grimly took in the scene. Tatyana hung, slowly spinning, legs kicking, choking, and gurgling on a tentacle of shadow, while a smaller spider-like creature had wrapped itself about her thigh, her red blood oozing out from the puncture wounds. Renchant was nowhere to be seen. They were under attack. Where was that blasted mage? Sleeping? Garvis saw Kendrock was on his back, eyes wide, jaws gaping, as multi-limbed spidery creatures clambered atop the Dragonborn, while a larger demon creature, like a mix between a human and a spider and an octopus, dropped from the ceiling atop the Dragonborn, misty black blood oozing and drifting atop his friend in a black haze. Garvis gave a shout and lifted Bloodthirst, his magical scimitar, high in challenge, and with his hand axe in his other hand, he leapt forward into the fray. Luckily, he fell asleep in his armor. I guess it pays to get drunk, just enough now and then. The fight, round 2. Kendrock, with a heave of exertion, grabbed his sword and rose to his feet, creatures spilling off of him. In his guttural, draconic tongue, he uttered a prayer to Shaniel. They would need her aid to survive this, to be sure. He felt the divine power of his patron respond to his faithful plea for aid, felt her divine fury grip his blade and burst forth in a holy blue flame. He roared and swung his blade, slashing through the large tentacled creature in front of him. It caught fire, the holy flames, eager to cleanse its filth from the face of the earth. It screamed in pain, its dark tentacles lashing out. So Kendrock, as a move action, got to his feet. As a bonus action, seeing Garvis coming through the door, he cast Serene Smite. His great sword burst into flame. He attacked the demon tentacle creature in front of him and hit, giving it 18 damage. 6 of that was fire damage. Tatyana felt the searing pain in her thigh, saw stars bursting in her head with each struggling breath. Grimly she fought on. Renchant! She screamed inside her head, and it finally came out as a gurgle. There was no answer. She hacked again and again at the tentacle, and finally her blade cut through. Black blood oozed like a cloud onto her face as she fell to the ground, gasping for air, after she pulled the flaccid remnant of the appendage from off her neck. The spider-like creature about her leg had jolted free from her fall. She slashed at it with her blade as she scrambled to her feet. She merely knocked it aside with the flat of her blade, and soon it was scuttling towards her again. But for the moment, she gasped in sweet air and limped backward, lifting her blade to defend against the spidery assailant. So Tatyana managed to free herself from the tentacle, breaking the strength difficulty check of 11, and then attacked the spider that had bit her, but her clumsy slash only managed to send it scuttling backwards, a clear miss. With a roar, Dosaken dashed into the room and leaped atop an ornately padded bench, his large muscles flexing as he gripped his two-handed battle-axe and readied it for a mighty swing above his head to wreak ruin and havoc upon the demonic before him. So this was a dash move to get into position, so no attack. Does one of the demon creatures attack Dosaken? I will say that is likely, and on a roll of a 10, I get a yes, and the demon creature scuttled spider-like and then dropped down atop Dosaken, rending and tearing. Tentacles and tooth-filled maw lashed out at the barbarian. He brought his arm up to block, but the thing latched onto his thick forearm, tentacles whipping about him, fangs penetrating his skin. His heart beat faster and faster as the heat of poison spread through him. He took a total of 13 damage, but succeeded in resisting the poison condition. Another lesser demon by the window made an odd clicking sound and rose up on its hind legs, tilting its strange head, segmented forelegs clacking together as if considering where the puny, fleshy morsel that had suddenly disappeared from view had gone to. Then its eyes narrowed, and it gaped its demonic maw open wider than was clearly natural. Its black fangs oozed with poison and gleamed in the firelight, and it retched, spewing forth an oozing, sticky, shadowy cloud that billowed forth in front of it. Then it clacked again and began to scuttle forward, as the once hidden human was now revealed. So this lesser demon spider thing by the window made an intelligence check to see if it could understand what Renchant did by going invisible. It rolled a natural 20 and had a -2 modifier, so an 18 total. It's not really intelligent per se. I think it is far too alien for that, but it knew its eyes had been deceived somehow, so it oozed a web of shadow with vomitous retching. And its web attack has to attack with disadvantage because it's not sure where the wizard is, but if it does hit Renchant, it will then be able to use its web sense thereafter to locate him instead of sight, and that would not be good. And it hits. Renchant felt thick, gooey strands of black shadow stretch and pull at his skin. He struggled to free himself. This larger, lesser demon creature is modeled after the ettercap, but they're not exactly the same. In some ways, they're more dangerous. On the fly, let's ask if it can do a single free attack after spitting and ensnaring someone in its web. I think that's somewhat likely. And on a roll of an 8, I get a yes. Very brutal. It'll do so, and it'll try to put Renchant down so that it only has to deal with Kendrock, who is already hurt. It knows exactly where Renchant is, as he's covered in webbing. The creature can see the lump, even though Renchant is still technically invisible. It'll also roll with advantage because the mage is restrained. But that will have to wait until next time on Shadow of the Demon. Thanks for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed this kind of quick and dirty fight episode that we've gotten into. We will wrap up the fight next time. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/Roll, Ponder, and Play. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at Roll, Ponder, and Play, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.